Hey, this is Pranav here, and I help soloists uncover their big idea because you don't need more content. You don't need to shout louder. You just need one big idea, which becomes a North Star to your brand, which becomes the one direction to which you can align. It becomes like one thread which unifies all your expertise. So, this is a semi regular video series where I showcase a specific big idea that has resonated with me. And I recently had this conversation with someone named Dr. Michael Gerharz, and it was inspiring. It was incredible, and that's the inspiration behind this particular video. Okay, so who is Dr. Michael? I think I'm not exaggerating here. I do think he is a legend in the field of you can call it communication messaging, but he is really someone who has thought this through. He is an author of this particular book, but it's not just that this book. He has a couple of other books as well, and I highly recommend checking out his website and his work, especially his daily email is something which deeply resonates with me. And his premise, okay, his premise on the website, if you see, his premise says that leaders light the path, become the clear, confident voice people trust to lead. Okay, so this lighting the path is really something that he owns. That's the one phrase that he uses quite often, and it's really the center to all his content, to all his content and communication universe. Like I said, his big idea is don't persuade harder, resonate stronger. Okay, don't persuade harder, resonate stronger, and immediately this gets a reaction, right? Because we live in this world where there is a lot of focus on persuasion, but he's saying no, like, stop doing that, resonate stronger. Okay. And a perfect template or a very good template for a big idea is stop dash start dash, right? Stop blank, start blank. So what he's doing is that, okay, stop persuading harder and start resonating stronger, which I love. What I also like about this big idea is that a big idea usually challenges the status quo. It challenges a commonly held practice, a commonly held belief that everyone is doing and that everyone is practicing. And in our case, there is a lot of focus on persuasion, like I said. And so when we fail to communicate, or when we really fail to maybe get any kind of resonance, or where we get to where we when we really fail to get any kind of action from our audience, the reaction that we have, our natural reaction is that, okay, maybe I was not so good at persuading. Maybe should have been, a little more persuasive. I should have said a specific word or a specific sentence, or I could have, I don't know, used a better headline and stuff. And when I hear this, when he says that, no, don't persuade harder, like, resonate stronger, like, you need to get into their hearts, that is what it implies, or that is what how I process, or that is how I take this big idea. So that is why I love this, because it is challenging the status quo, that, okay, while the whole world is telling you to persuade harder, there is a better way, which is resonate stronger. Now everything that he does, and he is a content machine, because he has been creating a lot. Okay, he is shipping a lot of creative work. So he's on Instagram, as you can see. He is on YouTube. Okay, he has these YouTube videos. One of his most interesting formats is podcast, and he has a 2-minute podcast which I find super fascinating. So like you can see, 2 minutes plus one idea to help you communicate with irresistible with irresistible clarity. But all of this revolves around this one big idea. And like I said, I had the privilege of talking to him recently, and he did mention that, every path does lead to that one big idea, which is lighting the path, right? Stop persuading, start resonating. I love how coherent everything works together. Like, I love the clarity that he has, and I love how everything comes together, because I've always maintained that a big idea, like the hill that you want to die on, the sun to your solar system is one, and then all the other things that you do basically are in support of this particular sun. But if I had to really specify the one thing that stands out for me, my initial reaction was that if I go to Michael's website, and if I look at his communication, his homepage copy, and all the other things, I one of my first reactions to this was, I mean, I love his big idea, but why isn't he talking about it more often? Why isn't he bringing it up? Because even on the homepage, I could not really find a lot of traces of the big idea. I did find it in his manifesto. It was there a little bit, but it wasn't explicitly there, right? I mean, for example, if you look at Simon Sinek and when we look at his big idea of start with why, it's there. Okay, I'm not saying it's on his website, but that's why we know Simon Sinek. And so my first reaction was to just email Dr. Michael and tell him that, hey, you should have this, more explicitly said. But then as I thought about it a little bit more, I realized that maybe it doesn't have to be that way. Because a big idea is not just a phrase. Of course, it is a phrase, and that phrase should be powerful. Those words do have meaning, but at the same time, it's something that you build with a lot of iterations. It's something that you build with actions. It's the feeling, the implicit feeling that you give to your audience. So if I want to be a, a good husband to my wife, there are two ways in which I can do it, right? Of course, I can go and tell her that, hey, I will be a good husband, or I could do things which tell her that I am a good husband. So that implicit nature of the communication, that implicit nature of communication is what Dr. Michael is really all about. Because if you consume his material, if you consume his email or his podcast or his Instagram post, you will see that everything is implicitly saying that, hey, you don't have to persuade harder. They might not use these words, but the feeling that they're eliciting is that you don't need to persuade harder, you need to resonate stronger. So the moral of the story is that a big idea flows through everything you do. It can be implicit. It's the feeling that you give to your audience. Maybe you don't need to say it that often. Maybe your audience needs to feel it. Thank you.